There have been so many goddamn remasters, remakes, and reboots of video games that gamers have a hard time categorizing them all. And it doesn't help that everyone has different definitions as to what these three constitutes. You can't really blame them since over the past several decades we've seen all types and manners of video game re-releases. First, there are remasters, which are pretty self-explanatory. Most of the time, all a remaster is a re-release of an older game, but with technical improvements to better fit the newer hardware. The game itself is mostly unchanged, using the same assets as before, same models, textures, and overall coding. It's easy to spot a remaster since there will most likely be some kind of label on it such as HD or shit remaster to help it differentiate itself from the original release. Remasters are popular for compilations in a franchise since it's an easy way to re-release older titles. Now, just because improvements are made to the game, that doesn't mean there can't also be downgrades. Many older games are so intertwined with the system they released on that a remaster can't always improve. So, is it worth playing Devil May Cry on newer systems for the HD resolutions and widescreen? Or is it better to play the original because the remaster has missing effects and various glitches? The quality of the actual remastering can vary depending on how much the developer gives a shit. Sometimes it's only improving resolutions and frame rates, which is fine if it doesn't totally fuck up the visuals, but I really like the remasters that actually take strides to improve the gameplay and touches up things that may have been bothersome in the original release. A genuine attempt to make the game better. Remakes are surprisingly tricky since we've seen many different approaches on game remakes. We have ones that try to stick as closely to the original as possible, remakes that overhaul the experience so much that it almost becomes a completely different game, and remakes that meet in the middle by staying close to the original but still modernizing it across the board. My metric is simple. If most, if not all assets in the game were redone, then it's a remake. Much like a shot-for-shot film remake, even if the foundation and content are essentially the same, then it's still a remake because they quite literally remade it. It's a remake. Super Mario All-Stars and Crash Insane Trilogy, despite sticking so close to their original versions, are still remakes because everything about the originals were redone with all new development tools. While Super Mario 3D All-Stars is only a remaster since the games in question only got minor technical improvements while still using the same assets as the originals. Wind Waker and Twilight Princess HD are remasters for the same reasons while also making changes to improve the gameplay, while Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask 3D are remakes because even though they use assets from the original, like music and sounds, the graphics were completely redone and the gameplay was retooled for the 3DS hardware. Last of Us Remastered is a remaster because most of the assets are the same as on PS3. Last of Us Part 1 is a remake because despite sticking so close to the original, all of the game's visuals and controls were remade. Reboots are made to reintroduce a franchise and to give it a fresh start for potential newcomers. Sometimes a reboot tries a different gameplay style like Donkey Kong Country, or maybe a different tone like in DMC. You also have reboots that strive to carry the franchise into new heights and elevates the gameplay in ways never thought possible like in Doom 2016 or Mortal Kombat 2011. Now it's great if a game re-release can do a good job at being one of these things, but to me, there's a game that stands out at being able to be a perfect example of all three. A game that's a remake of a beloved classic that remasters the already great gameplay while rebooting the franchise for modern gamers. And that game is Punch-Out! Hey, don't think I don't see all of you rolling your eyes at my selection here, and look, this video is my opinion and my opinion alone. But come on, fucking Punch-Out! It's a remake of the NES game that perfectly remasters the gameplay while rebooting its story and characters. Now, look, I'm not saying that this game is the perfect example of any one of these three individually. I just think it's a perfect example of a game that manages to be all three at once so harmoniously. Maybe that's a bit of a stretch. It definitely makes for a more clickbaity title, but fuck it, I want to talk Punch-Out! The original NES release wasn't actually the first in the franchise. That was the arcade game of the same name. While that and its sequel Super Punch-Out are pretty good arcade games, the gameplay just wasn't something that could be easily adapted to NES. So the NES game is more of an interpretation of the arcade original. You duke it out against an accoutrement of kooky characters, dodging telegraphed punches while counterattacking with a barrage of your own. It can be a little tricky if it's your first time playing, but since the gameplay is quite simple, it shouldn't take long to get the hang of it. Stars can be earned if you hit an opponent during a special opening. If you have a star, you can unleash a powerful uppercut that deals extra damage. You can carry up to 3 stars, but you'll lose them if you get hit. Matches last 3 rounds at an accelerated 3 minutes each, with the match ending in a decision should all the time run out. Knockdown opponents can be knocked out if you're either lucky or meet special conditions like a TKO. You yourself can be knocked down up to twice per match. The main approach to the gameplay is simply dodging your opponent's attacks, then laying the fuck smack on them again and again, repeat and repeat. Like I said, pretty simple. Now that's all well and good for the NES game, and it's the reason why this game has held up so well in the past decades. But what's amazing is that all I've just described can be applied directly to the Wii game. Punch-Out on the Wii is such a perfect remake of the timeless gameplay of the original. If you're someone very familiar with the NES game, then you'll be able to jump right into this one without a hitch. Now I hear people describe this game as more of a reimagining of the NES version, but no, fuck that, it's a remake. It has all the same fighters with the same story, and like I just acknowledged, virtually identical gameplay. It's really cool since you don't see many NES games get this kind of modern makeover. Usually it's done with a 2.5D art style or a pixel remaster. But Punch-Out retains the fun gameplay of the NES version while giving it just the biggest overhaul. It's funny because there was another Punch-Out sequel after the NES game on Super Nintendo called, well, Super Punch-Out. However, this installment was more of a proper adaptation of the arcade game than it was a sequel to the NES game. There's lots to love about this game, but personally, it's not to my tastes. The NES and subsequently Wii versions play like a chaotic rhythm game with careful timing and optimal button presses. With all that been said, I still also classify the Wii version as a reboot to the whole franchise as well, since the characters have all seen new makeovers and updated personalities. Doc Lewis fits much better as a boxing trainer, save for his new love of chocolate bars. Little Mac though got a much needed revamp. He's okay in the original as a player self-insert, but honestly he doesn't leave that much of an impression. In Smash Bros. Brawl, he's an assist trophy that I'd imagine most people have forgotten about. His design is the same as the NES game, but you know, it's still kinda shit. His new look in the Wii version is much better and more distinct. He's a lot more of an actual character who expresses emotions and shows more personality. It's what made him such a desired entry for Smash, and you bet your ass I was stoked as shit when Little Mac was announced for Smash 4. Speaking of, if you needed more convincing that Punch-Out Wii is a reboot, then look no further than Smash using the designs of the Wii version. The other fighters too are all handled beautifully. I find it kind of interesting in hindsight because when you look at the fighters in the original, they were pretty stereotypical, which could have made it challenging to adapt to modern audiences. But Next Level Games did something really amazing that made this obstacle a complete non-issue. Care to guess what it is? Here, I'll help you figure it out.
¿Has visto, hombre, cómo enamoro a las chicas?
Attention à mon menton! Ne frappe pas mon menton! 挨拶は大きな声でしっかりと。Abime waha.
They actually got voice actors who fit the cultural and racial profile of their corresponding Punch-Out characters. It's really cool because these goofballs are exaggerated way beyond what the NES game portrayed. In any other scenario, it could have looked a bit insensitive, but since the voice cast are all appropriately cast, it only makes these characters more endearing. I'm not bilingual, so I can't understand most of what these characters say. In the NES version, they all have English dialogue, but I still prefer how the Wii version handled it because there is so much more personality injected. And from what I understand, despite the exaggeration, these character portrayals are still more respectful than what you might find in other media. All the different sounds and grunts and quotes they make are all hypnotically captivating. It sort of replicates the effect of classic game sound effects. All the characters from the NES game return, further boosting the fact that this is a remake, though 2 characters return from Super Punch-Out, being Bear Hugger and Aaron Ryan. Aaron Ryan in the original didn't leave that much of an impression to my understanding, though in the Wii version he is the biggest, sleaziest, cheating, verbally colorful cocksucker that makes him a fan favorite. Bear Hugger is Canadian, and considering Next Level Games is a Canadian studio, you'd think they'd handle this character with some class.
Now I have the strength of a bear. Oh, that's good, yes. I like raw fish. Hey, hoser! I'm gonna hit you so hard, you're gonna see northern lights, eh?
This game is awesome, you guys. Disco Kid is the only brand new character created for this game, though from what I understand he's a direct interpretation of the arcade character Kid Quick. Donkey Kong fills the role of a bonus fighter that's unlocked in the Last Stand mode. They originally thought Princess Peach would fit, but then realized it wouldn't be cool to beat up a woman in a boxing game. Still won't stop die-hard fans from living the dream. I do think Donkey Kong fits better since he already had some boxing aesthetics in DK64. The only character from the original that was omitted was Mike Tyson in the original release and Mr. Dream in re-releases, though I don't really count them since neither of them feel like a real part of the cast and only serve as an ultimate challenge that few players will actually tackle. Though, I guess to be fair, the title defense fight against Mr. Sandman is sort of a reskinned Mike Tyson, with Mr. Sandman resembling him a bit more and having a similar level of challenge. As I greatly enforced earlier, the gameplay is nearly identical to the NES game. You work your way up boxing matches from the minor circuit to major and finally world. You tackle fighters in roughly the same order as the NES game, with some changes that make more sense compared to that version. For instance, the NES game has a couple repeat fights against Piston Hondo, Don Flamenco, and Bald Bull. These repeat fights were swapped with other characters in the Wii version. Character order was also changed to make the difficulty more balanced. Like how in the NES game, Super Macho Man was the final main opponent, even though Mr. Sandman is a much harder fight. So in the Wii version, their spots are swapped, with Mr. Sandman being the ultimate challenge and a damn intimidating one. Like, you spend the whole campaign trying your best to whoop ass the whole way through, taking down fighters one by one, only to be met with this. Damn. All the characters have the same overall moveset as the NES game, with the animations being deliciously replicated. If you've seen the new Frame Plus video on Punch-Out, then you'll know what I mean. It also means if you played the NES game a lot, then you already have a massive advantage on the Wii fights. Speaking of the fights themselves, there are several tweaks made that makes them different from the NES version, but overall are better additions. For starters, a simple one is blocking by holding up instead of down. Up just makes more sense and makes the move in general more useful. Ducking is also better utilized. I don't even have footage of ducking in the original since it's so inconsequential. In the Wii version, ducking is better utilized in the heat of the fights. The way stars work is different, but better. In the original, you can carry up to 3 stars and use 1 star at a time to unleash a powerful uppercut. In the Wii version, you also can carry 3 stars, but with the uppercut being more powerful depending on how many stars you have. This small tweak makes me think it was done to be more reminiscent of the power meter from the arcade games and Super Punch-Out. Also in the NES game, if you get hit, you'll lose 1 star at a time with each hit taken, while in the Wii game, 1 hit makes you lose all your stars. I like it, as it makes for a tense risk-reward system where you have to weigh the consequences of potentially losing all your stars while trying to get more, and then finding the opportunity to unleash the uppercut. It may be more challenging, but it makes it so much more satisfying when you're in the heat of the fight, barely dodging attacks, gaining and then losing stars, getting knocked down, and getting back up. Your hands are sweating, you're on the edge of your seat, you manage to collect enough stars, you finally get the opening, you stun your opponent, and then I should mention before I forget, while you lose all your stars after 1 hit, they did add a lot more opportunities to earn stars for all the opponents to balance it out. Some other little tweaks is how in the NES game you can regain some health by either pressing select in between rounds, though only once per match, and by hitting opponents, though this is a slow process that almost goes unnoticeable. In the Wii version, you can also regain health in between rounds once per match, but instead of hitting opponents during a fight, you can regain health by mashing the punch buttons while your opponents are down. It actually makes you hope they stay down longer so you can regain more health. A bonus feature is a final chance, where if you're knocked down for the 3rd time and you mash the buttons enough, Little Mac will regain composure for one final chance to win the fight. It's pretty rare for it to happen, but makes winning so much more satisfying, while making losing suck even harder. The final little tweak I could think of is the omission of the slight differences between left and right punches. I'm not too sure about it, but I believe in the original left and right punches aren't identical, with left punches being slightly quicker while right punches are slightly stronger, or something like that. I think it only matters in speedrunning, but not so much in casual play. Either way, it's something that wasn't needed in the Wii version. So the Wii version basically has the same story mode as the original, where you battle all the opponents until you become the World Circuit Champion. This makes it about as long as the original, which is way too short for a Wii title. Luckily, there's the foreboding Title Defense mode that you unlock after the main story. You may have earned the belt, but can you defend it? It more or less plays out like the normal mode, except all the fighters have seen a massive difficulty spike. Faster animations, new moves, new looks, harder hits, and double the challenge. These guys are pissed that a schmuck like Little Mac could ever best them in the ring. But luckily, you're up for the challenge and will show them what it means to be champion. Of course, if you lose a match and in turn the belt, then you can retry immediately until you beat all the fighters again. But trust me, you will need to be on your A game since all of the fighters have new tricks up their sleeves, and some fights have special conditions that make them especially challenging. For starters, the repeat fights in the original with Piston Hondo, Don Flamenco, and Bald Bull are repurposed for title defense here. So Bald Bull can only be knocked down with a Star Punch, which is a real pain in the ass. Bear Hugger has it where you can only hit him twice when stunned, so you'll have to rely on Star Punches to really shave his health. King Hippo has the stupid manhole cover that needs to be removed before you can hurt him. Glass Joe has headgear because he lost 100 fucking times. Grey Tiger is a game of Simon Says with matching the color of his jewel with his attacks. Soda Popinski, you have to be good at dodging because you can only hit him twice, with each dodge granting you an additional hit in the stun, with the streak ending if you get hit. Mr. Sandman stole Mike Tyson's blinks, which require frame-perfect reaction time. And Aaron Ryan...
You're gonna love this, Mac.
What the fuck? What I'm trying to say is, it's hard. To top it off, in Title Defense they implement one NES rule. In the normal career mode, you can be knocked down twice per round. It wasn't like this on NES. There, you can only be knocked down twice per match, and that carries over to Title Defense. So if you get knocked down twice in round 1, survive till round 3, and then get knocked down one more time, it's an instant KO. Once you successfully defended your title, you're left with one last challenge, Mac's Last Stand. It's pretty simple. It's a gauntlet of random title defense fights until you lose 3 times, ending with Little Mac retiring. You can't chicken shit out by retrying in the middle of fights like you can in the previous modes, so I hope you're ready. It's also your only chance to unlock Donkey Kong as a bonus fighter. After that, the only thing left for you to do is probably complete challenges in Expedition mode, where you can refight boxers at your leisure. The music even reflects the characters in this mode. So, at this point, what more can I say? This video probably went off the rails a bit, but hopefully now you can see what I mean when I call this game the perfect remaster, remake, and reboot. Again, not a perfect example of one individually, just a game that works as all 3 at once. Hopefully this game can get some attention in the form of a re-release because it's such a polished title that goes a bit overlooked in the broader gaming community. It's a shame because it's not common for an old game of simple mechanics to get this kind of polished makeover. It's also an example of Nintendo just deciding to revive a dormant franchise with so much love and care. It's as if they kept making installments the whole time. The only other game I could think of that's like this is Kid Icarus Uprising, and that's also a title that needs more modern attention.
シンパルテナ強気ゲームとしてやりたいですよね。どこかがペロッと移植してくれないかな。
But either way, I love Punch-Out, and I've been playing the Wii version ever since I was 11. I'd love to see either a remaster or sequel since there's still so much potential for a game like this. Next Level Games are probably busy now working on what their next game is, so only time will tell. I think that'll be it for me today, so I just want to say thank you for watching.